Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the chaos mode in CZN, and although there is a lot to unpack and unravel about this, there is a kind of important detail, or there are very important details or tips and advice that you should probably keep in mind when you're going through CZN. And with this chaos mode, and the importance of it is also something that a lot of people should keep in mind, just because in terms of progressing or improving the strength of your characters, there's really only so much that you could get out of just raw upgrading them. And with that, we'll be talking about, again, what the mode is, some tips and advice for going through it, but alongside this we'll also talk about the zero system, which is another very important aspect of the chaos mode. Finally, we'll talk about whether or not you should farm for the chaos mode or any advice regarding this. But with this, let's actually begin and start by talking about these sizes. Now, in case you're curious, these sizes of the modes are pretty relevant. As you see through here, there are some general descriptions here, and for the most part, what it says is that the bigger the size of the world, the higher danger that you're in, and of course, you do need to, of course, be more careful. However, something that I don't think is really talked about or discussed at length is that part of the reason why the size is so important is because this, alongside some other aspects, including things like whether or not you have high difficulty on or turned on for your activity, and this alongside whether or not you have the mind break mode on, these will actually affect whether or not the activity that you're in will be worth it. Now, when I mention worth it, what I'm really referring to is this saved data value here down at the bottom. And the reason why this is so relevant is because the saved data value, though sounding like a reward, is actually what dictates how much of your character's cards and experience that you've had in the chaos mode will actually be able to be saved. Now, to be clear, what I'm referring to here is actually in reference to the save data that you're seeing on screen right now. And again, for certain characters, or depending on what character that you're running, having high save data is essential, if not actually almost mandatory for a lot of characters if you want to ascend your builds into the top tier. Now, the reason for this is because without having a certain level of, or rather without having high save data, this, of course, will remove or get rid of some of your prior cards, or even worse, replace some of the cards that you otherwise would have wanted with, again, some of the basic cards as you see on screen, including the shield and damage here. Now, in terms of, again, taking a step back to actually talk about the chaos manifestation itself, these are effectively just roguelike modes. You will proceed through content. There will be a variety of different modes, or rather events, that you partake in for a bit of guidance. In most cases, what you'll want to look out for are either the campfires that have the chest around them, as this allows you to go to the shop, and in addition to this, you could also look out for the elites, which also pose some value depending on whether or not you're farming for a super giga run, or if you feel like you're nearing the end of a run, feel that you may be in danger if you end up fighting a boss, and therefore you may actually want to avoid these. Now, in terms of the actual tips or advice for said mode, I would definitely recommend having, again, probably our GOAT, Mika, on one of your teams, or at least use Mika in a run or two so that you can kind of build up her effectiveness, or build up her viability and her power, as, again, in most modes outside of the chaos manifestation or even the zero system, you'll likely end up using Mika to farm, or even in some cases just survive or progress through campaign activities. Now, we should also mention the DPS in this game, because this is also really relevant, but less so in terms of what the DPS do, and rather why you may feel that certain DPS are weaker. Now, if you just take a quick look at what some of these characters have access to at base, you'll see that a character like Renoa, who we were able to test at the start of the game, didn't really have much of the Black Veil or Annihilation shots be focused on, and rather a lot of what we saw in the intro, and if you ever experience any limited modes with her, is her Echo of Sorrow, things like the Flower of Devoured Fate, and some of these more unique cards that do a lot for her kit. Now, this isn't to say that Echo of Sorrow, or even sometimes the Annihilation shot, are unusable in their base form, but rather, once you're able to adjust or access the epiphanies of these abilities, it's pretty clear why they are honestly just so impactful. As you're seeing right now, some of these effects are not just good, they're outright broken. To be more specific, like the Echo of Sorrow, where you're able to create 3 dirge bullets, This is game changing. This allows you to, in a lot of cases, one-shot a lot of small or normal mobs once you get more, damage, or once you start stacking buffs onto your Rinoa. But even aside from this, which I consider to be one of the stronger abilities that Rinoa has access to, we also have something like Flower of Devoured Fate, which when activated, or when activated its epiphany, you can actually have one of these effects, which is just this one, where you just discard all other combatant cards in your hand, and for each of the discarded cards you have 2 dirge bullets created. Now, this does have the added effect of costing 1 more, and this does also obviously exhaust you. And in case you're curious about what the exhaust pile is, this moves it to an exhaust pile, and you aren't able to obviously deal with the card in the future. But in terms of how many bullets you actually get access to, if you are using this in something like a boss encounter, you don't really care about what comes after the boss encounter, or it's not a multi-stage sort of activity in most cases. So with this, there are some that will use something like this obviously very strong exhaust related ability and get something like 5, 6, 7 cards, something like this, exhaust, throw away all the cards, and then create up to, I don't know, sometimes 10 to 14 bullets, which in most cases, as you would imagine, is enough to one-shot anyone. Now, in addition to this, part of the reason why the bullets are the dirge bullets are so important is because you also have the scaling of things like her other unique abilities, which will increase the amount of damage that you have. And this, when you look at some of the other effects of their epiphanies, is also crazy, as again, you could increase the damage of bullets. You can even move some of the bullets from the draw pile to from the graveyard to your hand. And all of this to say, obviously, in terms of what you're focusing on for the content, you'll want to specifically use these chaos modes, not just to get all the shiny equipments, but actually farm for epiphanies, or comb out, or rather crop or prune out some of the worst cards that you're seeing here in the beginning. Now, while you're in the process of this, I should make it clear that though I may obviously have some things messed up, or I may be a little bit confused in some parts, as again, some of the aspects of the game still feel a bit unexplained or not as clear. Something that is worth mentioning is that, again, if this save data value at the bottom here isn't at a certain level, it doesn't matter if you've spent an entire run getting rid of or consuming or, pruning your deck perfectly so that you don't have some of these lower level basic cards here, as you're seeing through my save data right now. Because my save data wasn't high enough, I was forced to obtain or be given some of these basic cards, which of course is not what you want. Now, to cite a different example, if you actually take a look at someone like Cassius, part of the reason why people like Cassius is because you do have access to epiphanies that are pretty good, and not the card motions, but in terms of if you look at some of the epiphanies like these, for instance, being able to draw 2 cards, being able to draw cards per target hit, being able to deal damage equivalent to the cards cost, all of these are extremely powerful. But again, this alongside things like the ability to shuffle do not matter if a majority of the time you're dealing with things like the wild card, or even the mana field, or even the generic cards. Now, beyond this, we should also talk about the zero system, because this is actually a bit of a tie-in for whether or not you should farm for chaos mode specifically, and more importantly, what's to come in the future. Now, I have only just recently unlocked the zero system, but from my experience and from what we've seen in the beta, essentially what we've seen with the zero system is that this is the higher tier, much more difficult mode where you're able to more reliably farm for systems. Now, to be clear, this is the end or more end game mode of, or end game variation of the chaos manifestation. And with this, again, you do have also access to rewards here, but again, in terms of difficulty, you can obviously scale this higher and higher. And although right now I don't have much of what I'd want unlocked, you can see now that the save data value is much higher. And although of course you can obviously obtain other or better loot in this case, something that is just flat out way more important to keep in mind, of course, is that having a higher save data value in this case then allows you to farm out encounters quicker, which again is something that's quite relevant, especially as I've begun chapter 5 episode 3. Now, again, you can call it skill issue, you call it not being good enough at the game, but at least for what I've been through, there have been certain fights where even when I feel that I have a pretty set or a pretty stacked roster, because some of the harder content in the game involves you going into something like a chaos or a chaos manifestation. Even for something like this current stage, I'm struggling a little bit just because I don't have, again, a properly tuned or pruned out kit. Now, again, though this is something where having a higher or a more improved save data won't really work, as again it resets you here, some of the other content in the game, including things like the battle missions, alongside just general farming, if you'd like it to be faster, it's very relevant for you to have save data, or save data that's actually proper. And I do also want to mention that in case you haven't seen it already, there actually is an event activity that they ask you to participate in, which I am trying to scroll through right now. Here we go, where you're actually able to take a look at what Haru feels or plays like when you're at the more endgame or more optimized deck build. And with this, again, the mode itself shows you a preview of just how good the decks that you could have are. In addition to this, obviously, like, it gives you not just a look at what Haru has access to, but you could also see what some of the other builds of some of the characters are. Now, beyond all this, guys, again, through the systems and through a lot of the changes, or through the curveballs that the chaos modes or the chaos manifestations or the zero systems throw at you, something that I do want to make clear is that in terms of when you should really be investing your time into farming chaos modes, outside of if you just enjoy it, the answer is really once you start getting into the zero system. Now, this of course doesn't mean that you can't do things like the Swamp of Judgment, the City of Mist, any of these, just to clear or get the first time rewards, as of course you not only get save data from this, but you also get first time rewards. But in terms of when the actual value will come in, it feels a bit pointless at the start of the game or pre-level 40 for you to continue doing like runs trying to get a perfect setup, as again, inevitably, the second that you enter into the zero system, you're already jumping from a normal save data value to that of high, alongside giving you access to a lot of the new legendaries, which of course will be pretty valuable. Now, ultimately though, guys, I understand that what I'm saying is something that maybe not many of you guys have gotten to, and just like with early farming of gear in games like this, if you want to do some of the early manifestations to try and get a run where you do have access to a damageless Mika build, or you don't have a Mika build that has a lot of random save data built into it, I could totally understand that. And as someone that deeply finds Source of Water and Tactical Analysis to be some of the most OP cards that we've ever seen, I get it. And if you want to do that, by all means, that's fine. However, I just want to caution you and give you a bit of warning, as I've seen people that have spent like almost 10 to 11 hours straight in this chaos mode just for them to eventually drop out, or, you know, obviously have to swap to the zero system. Now, again, this is just a bit of a PSA or a disclaimer, as otherwise, similar to how in other gacha games you spend a lot of time farming purples and you may have the perfect substats of a purple set of gear, this doesn't really make much sense if, again, you're just going to swap out later or continue progressing even further, even into the zero system, and try to find a setup or a loadout that has a high or even higher save data load. Now, that's going to be it in terms of everything that we have for the Chaos Manifestation mode. Now, again, I do want to preface that although the Chaos Manifestation is very important and impactful when it comes to progressing and pushing, it is also worth noting that I've found actually the best value from this Chaos Manifestation stuff, more specifically for autoing. Now, I know that sounds really crazy, as again, you would imagine that a perfect kit is probably only playable with a perfect setup. But actually, I found that after switching out a lot of my kit, or a lot of my cards out for more usable cards, and less about like ones that give me Black Veil, I found that a lot of my cards end up being way more damage oriented, obviously, because you're getting rid of some of the weaker ones. And as a result, when I started autoing with characters like Mika, if all they had access to are things of Source of Water, this of course costs no AP, and then it allows me to actually cycle into the more relevant DPS abilities, which again, in cases like Renoa, and as one of you guys rightfully posted or noted later about Lucas when I was looking for AoE, this is also the case for him, especially if you're able to get rid of a lot of these early initial cards, as all the others are pretty reliable DPS oriented. Now, as a final note, I do want to say that despite all my glazing of how good the card system can be if you prune it, there are some characters that really no matter what you do, the auto system will just not function properly with it. And unfortunately, that's kind of the case for Haru. Now, this, of course, is a bit of a separate note from the Chaos Manifestation, but in case if you're curious about whether or not Chaos Manifestation would make Haru absolutely broken in some sort of AFK or auto sense, the answer is kind of no. I do still think that when you prune out a Haru's kit or her cards, she does become an absolute beast, because you have some of the most OP cards that I think I've ever seen. Some of her epiphanies, like this one, allow you to crit and then return the card to hand. Some of the other, even the anchor points, they allow you to, increase the damage of the card, or you're even able to allow these to retain some of your anchor shots so that you can keep them later if you feel that you don't have enough AP or card generators, and all this obviously super impactful, super crazy, but all of this, fortunately or technically unfortunately, whether or not you enjoy the process, comes from the Chaos mode, which, as a real final summary of the mode, is quite long despite being decent, at least in terms of building up or making your account stronger. Now, that's going to be it for today's video though, guys. For real, thanks again for watching. I'll see you all in the next one though. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good luck with your pulls in Chaos Zero Nightmare.